Hey, thanks for pulling out your pocket, Ronnie. We're going to be doing square root of trinomials. I want to remind you that square root is the opposite of squaring. In math, there's a lot of things that are opposite, like addition is opposite of subtraction. 5 squared is 25. The opposite of squaring is the square root. The square root of 25 equals 5. I want to show it to you this way. Remember, the square root means what times itself. What times itself equals 25. So what times itself is 5. So the 5 is the answer. What times itself. So we can apply that same principle when you get to trinomials, looking at 24a3. When you have a trinomial here, you want the square root. Remember, the symbol is square root. You have the square root of this trinomial. The key is to factor it, okay? Factor the trinomial. We're in a positive world. We can't factor anything out. We're in a positive world, so everything is positive. The factors of x squared are x and x. The factors of 25 are 25 and 1 and 5 and 5. And you can see that 25 and 1 is not going to work, so we would use 5 and 5. So I will show you a tip that is going to happen when you are factoring these with square roots. When you factor this trinomial, your parentheses should look the same, because the square root means what times itself equals this. So x plus 5 times itself times x plus 5 equals that. So the square root of this whole trinomial is just one of these. So that would just be x plus 5 is your final answer. Remember, just as in the square root of 5 times 5, the square root of 5 squared, what times itself? So it was just 5. It's just one of those. So the same is true here. It's just one of the parentheses. Okay? Here is a tip to factoring. You can see if you took the square root of x squared, you get x. If you took the square root of 25, it's just 5. So when you're factoring, you can take the square root of this first term to be your x and x, to be your first here, and then the square root of your last term to get your number in the last spot. Alright, let's look at 24c. We have the square root of x squared plus 2x plus 1. Remember, the first thing you want to do is factor. I can't factor anything out, so I'm ready to factor to 2 parentheses. I'm in a positive world. And remember, my parentheses should look the same, because the square root means what times itself gives you this answer. And the tip is take the square root of x squared, and that will give you your x terms here. Take the square root of 1. And the factors of 1 are just 1 times 1. And the square root of 1 is 1. Your parentheses should look the same. So the square root of this is just one of these parentheses. What times itself gives you that, and that x plus 1 times itself gives you what's under the radical. You can always go back and check your answers to say x plus 1 times x plus 1. You can FOIL it back out. X squared plus 1x plus 1x plus 1. And it gives you x squared plus 2x plus 1. It gives you what's under the radical. So x plus 1 times itself does give you what is under the radical. So that does check. Okay, look at 24b, number 3. We want the square root of 4x squared plus 4x plus 1. I can't factor anything out, so I am ready to factor into 2 parentheses. I'm in a positive world, positive, positive, so everything is positive. I look at the factors of 4x squared. It's either 4 times 1 or 2 times 2. But remember my tip. The tip is to take the square root of 4x squared. The square root of 4x squared. The square root of 4 is 2. The square root of x squared is just x. So these factors will be 2x, because remember, our parentheses need to look exactly the same. And if you had a 4x here and a 1x here, they don't look exactly the same. And then the square root of 1 is just 1. Your factors of 1 are just 1 times 1. And so remember, the parentheses should look the same. So when you ask yourself what times itself gives you this, 2x plus 1 times itself gives you what's under the radical. You can check it saying 2x plus 1 times itself does give you 4x squared plus 2x plus 2x plus 1, and that does give you a 4x, so that does check.